So, starting with the conversation of Newsom versus Vance for 2028, we have to start with how the current administration is doing. Because obviously, Donald Trump, as the president, and J.D. Vance as vice president, plays a very important role in the thought process and rationale of how I think this currently is going as of today in April of 2026. So, Donald Trump's current approval rating is sitting at right around a low for his second term now, at 40.3% approve and 56.2% disapprove. So overall, Trump is roughly down. He's negative about 16 points in his second term, which obviously just the math there alone is very, very bad. And when you look at how Trump was polling in his first term of the Real Clear Politics average, at this current point in 2018, which again, 2018 went on to be a very big night for the Democrats, a big Democratic wave for them, Trump was down across the average of the year, roughly about 10.7%. And Trump ended up in 2020 when he lost to Joe Biden, down about 8.7%. So Trump is currently roughly about 6 points or so, or 5 points down of where he was in 2018, which is why Democratic chances and optimism for 2028 are really at an all-time high, is because Trump's approval rating is essentially at an all-time low. So that's going to be a big issue for J.D. Vance and the Republicans in 2028, is Trump is really not popular right now. When it comes to the right track, wrong track as well, the country also is very unpopular at 34.2% on the right track, 58.7% on the wrong track. Again, going off the argument that Trump's approval ratings are not strong right now. As for J.D. Vance himself, his approval numbers are a few points better than Trump, but they're trending in honestly the wrong direction, where he's currently unfavorable at 48.1%, favorable at 38.8%. So his favorability is roughly negative 10, which obviously is not good. It's still roughly about 5 points better than Trump's right now, or if you really want to argue, about 6 points better than Trump's right now. But still, just being the vice president, Vance already has roughly 48% of the people have made up their mind that they do not like him, according to these polling averages, which is not a good place to be if you're trying to become the president in 2028 to succeed at this point the currently unpopular president that is in the White House. Now, the one thing the Republicans have going for them is the Democrats aren't polling too much better. Gavin Newsom, though there are more people undecided, he's polling at 31.7% favorable to 41.5% unfavorable. So even though there's roughly about 73% of people that have made up their mind, and there's still about 30% or so that haven't, Gavin Newsom is not too well approved of in the national averages either based on this. The Democratic Party as a whole is not very popular either at 37.6% favorable to 53.7% unfavorable. The Republicans are honestly just as bad at 37.7% favorable to 54.4% unfavorable. So at least as of right now, it almost seems like both J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom, according to the polling averages, are not particularly well liked by a good amount, not a majority, but a very large plurality of the United States citizens, of the American people, do not like Gavin Newsom as of right now and do not like J.D. Vance either. But a clear majority of American people right now are not approving of the job Donald Trump is doing, which is what sets up 2028 at this current point in time and where I think it ultimately goes. Now, we have to go back to the 2024 map, where Donald Trump won as the first Republican to win the national popular vote since I believe it was 2004. He got 49.8% of the vote to Kamala Harris's 48.3%. He won roughly 1.5% of the national popular vote. And again, this is an important context to show you here. This is what Trump's approval rating was going to 2020. He was down negative 8.7. We can look at Joe Biden's approval rating for 2024 and heading into it. Biden in 2022 was down 12.9. By 2024, he was down 15.7, which is right around the same that Donald Trump is down right now. So obviously what happens throughout the rest of Trump's second term is going to play a very important role for 2028. Because if it gets any lower than it is now, the Republicans could be in for a monumental blowout in 2028 and not winning any battleground state or maybe even losing some likely Republican states as well. If the numbers rebound and Trump can get more into the 2020 numbers of maybe down 8 to 7%, it gives J.D. Vance a fighting chance or whatever Republican becomes the nominee. But Biden being at negative 15.7 was so unpopular, Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed Kamala Harris to give the Democrats even a remote fighting chance in 2024. And ultimately, it was for naught as Donald Trump ended up winning, and he won every major battleground state, including Nevada for the first time for the Republicans since 2004. Arizona, he flipped back from 2020. He swept Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania again like he did in 2016. He held North Carolina, and he won back Georgia. But it's important to mention in 2020, which had record-setting voting turnout, Nevada went blue, Arizona went blue very narrowly, Wisconsin went blue, Michigan went blue, Pennsylvania went blue, North Carolina went red, and Georgia went blue. But again, there was record high turnout in 2020, the whole COVID situation going on, but Trump's approval rating based on the polls was also roughly his favorable numbers about 8 points higher, or no, I'm sorry, that's incorrect, about 5 to 6 points higher than they currently are now when you look at the 39% or 40% versus the 44%. So what does that all mean for 2028? Well, it's important to mention that not every election is the same in a vacuum. And a large important part of elections seems to be the economy, affordability, and prices of things like food, gas, utilities, and such. That's why I think Donald Trump's approval ratings are so low right now, is that the American people are really feeling the brunt of all these high prices, especially on gas and food right now, and the economy not looking too strong. So as of today, I think we see an election that starts out kind of similar to 2024 in terms of the safe Democratic states that all voted for Kamala Harris by either a safe margin or a near safe margin continue to do so. But what I think we're also going to see is a lot of the states that were just under 15 points go safe in 2028 for Gavin Newsom. So Illinois and New York, New Jersey, these are places that were very close to being safe, except for New Jersey, which was right around 6 points. But as we saw in the 2025 governor's race, it went for the Democrat by 14.4%. I think we're going to see something similar in 2028 at this current point in time, where that essentially goes safe. And then you're going to have a state like Colorado and Virginia, which is right around the edge of being safe or likely. We're going to put it in likely for right now. We could even throw New Jersey in that like 14-point range, but still, they're going to be more likely or more safe than lean. New Mexico, I'd also put in that category. Minnesota, despite being more competitive in 2024, I think we'd seen this matchup being closer to around a 10-point victory for the Democrats. The Maine at large would also be like that. I think we'd see Nebraska's 2nd district go in that category as well. Democrats, I think, would start out with at least 222 electoral votes pretty strongly. Republicans, obviously, we'll get to the safe states in a second. But one toss-up state that was very close in 2024 was the state of New Hampshire, which voted for Biden by 7.4 in 2020. It voted for Harris over Trump by 2.8%. I think at very least for Newsom versus Vance, New Hampshire would start out in the likely Democratic category, which is in between 5 and 15%. New Hampshire probably wouldn't be too competitive in this election cycle. The safe states for the Republicans would still be the ones that were similar to 2024, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Nebraska's 3rd district, and Nebraska at large. Oklahoma, Kansas, I think would be right around the edge of being a safe or likely state. So we're going to leave it off for now. Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and right around South Carolina. Could be safe, could be likely. I think South Carolina would start as safe. This puts the Democrats at 226. Republicans are off to 115. Now, there are still a good amount of states that I think would vote Republican in this election scenario, but would fall under the 15% margin. And due to the shifts from 2024 to 2028 in the popularity of the president, I think we'd see Alaska continue to be under a 15-point Republican win, but more than 5. I think Texas would follow a similar trajectory, as would Kansas and would the state of Florida. That would put the Republicans up to 194. And then you have the states of Ohio and Iowa. Now, these states are interesting because they voted for Trump by 13 points in 2024, Ohio by 11 in 2024 for Trump. In 2020, they voted 8 points for Trump and 8 points for Trump in Iowa and Ohio. So as for 2028, it's going to be interesting because there are some very close Senate elections and governor elections up in 2026, which may give us an indicator of how these states are currently feeling, especially given the economic situations of the tariffs and such, which are not playing too well in states like Iowa and Ohio. But I do think in a national election environment, Iowa and Ohio should at least be 5-point wins for J.D. Vance. And I'm not sure how much higher they go, but I think they would at least start out in that category. Nebraska's 1st district and Maine's 2nd district as well, I think would still be right around 5-point victories. Nebraska's first district went by 13 points for Trump. Maine's 2nd went by 9 points for Trump. So it's possible Maine's 2nd could fall under 15 points, but I think Vance would hold both of them by more than 5 points, which would get the Republicans up to 219. Now the main battle map really begins. And in terms of these toss-up states right now, given Trump's approval rating currently at negative 16 points, again, I can't stress this enough. If things change between now and 2028, which they probably will, we don't know how they will, whether it's better or worse for Trump. But if they do change, the map will look different. But as of today, in making this bracket video right now, there's not really a scenario where I can not give Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania to Gavin Newsom by at least 1 point. Because the approval rating of Trump right now, again, is roughly about 5 points lower than it was in 2020. And in that election, Joe Biden ultimately won all of them. Wisconsin by 0.63, Michigan 2.8, Pennsylvania 1.2. Now without Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, who won all three in 2024, now it's J.D. Vance, but he's running to succeed Trump. In an election environment where Trump is arguably as unpopular as he's ever been, Vance is running to succeed him. It doesn't spell a great situation for the Republicans. Now, Gavin Newsom's own popularity issues are going to play a role as well. But I think when it's push comes to shove, are people more upset with Donald Trump or Newsom's popularity issues? In 2024, people were more upset with Biden and would rather vote for Trump than Kamala Harris. In 2028, I think it'll be the flip, where people are more upset than Trump, and then we'll vote for Newsom over Trump's handpicked candidate, J.D. Vance. So I think all three of the Rust Belt states, they continue to vote in unison, and they ultimately vote for Gavin Newsom, which gets Newsom to 270 right there alone. But I don't think the map starts there, because I think when you look at 2024, you look at the states like Georgia, 2.2%, North Carolina, 3.2%, Arizona, 5.5%, and Nevada, 3.1%, and you compare it to 2020, where Nevada was 2.4%, Arizona, 0.31%, Georgia, 0.24%, and you can look at North Carolina, 1.3 for Trump. And in this election scenario, all of them are potentially at risk for going for the Democrats in 2028. The main question will be, though, ultimately, do they? Of these states, the one that I think I'm the most confident would stay in the Republican category, which is kind of going the opposite of the Senate race right now, would be the state of North Carolina, which I think would go tilt for J.D. Vance. I don't know. I think Roy Cooper is a very good Democrat that can win and probably will win the state on the Senate level. I don't know if Gavin Newsom's the right Democrat to win it at a presidential level, but I think it will make it go under 1 point and will make it very close. Georgia, however, I think this is going to be an election where Georgia does flip back to the Democrats and Newsom wins it, getting up to 286 electoral votes. Georgia and the surrounding Atlanta areas did trend more to the Democrats and less towards the Republicans in 2024 than a lot of the other battleground states did. So I think Georgia would be the first of the battleground states that voted for Biden in 2020, Trump in 2024, to flip back to the Democrats in 2028. Nevada and Arizona are going to be very interesting, though. Arizona swung really hard back to the Republican side. It was Biden plus 0.3 in 2020, and then Trump won it by 5.5 in 2024. So that was a very big shift. Now, it's not impossible that it can go blue, as Georgia was roughly about 5.1 in 2016, and Biden won it by 0.24. So Arizona is sort of like right on that edge of going Republican, of going Democrat for 2028 based on these shifts. And I wanted to show you before we get too late into this, if Trump won the popular vote by about 1.5, shifting this map roughly about 3 points, or the result about 3 points or so, we can see what it would look like. It would get the Democrat up to about 286 electoral votes, so 235 for the Republican. One more would bring it to roughly about 308 for the Democrats, 219 for the Republicans, with North Carolina and Nevada narrowly going blue. Arizona still remaining red. Now, North Carolina I have under 1 point. I do think it still remains narrowly red, but that's certainly with the possible of flipping blue as well. I do think Arizona ultimately does narrowly stay Republican, though, in the tilt Republican category. I think 2020 was kind of the special case there. In Maricopa County, we're going to need another election of trends to see how that's going to go in 2028. But Arizona, like North Carolina, right around the edge of potentially flipping. In Nevada is going to be a very interesting one as well, as it did, we can hit done here, it did shift in these rankings to Harris at 0.9. But Trump also won it in 2024 by the first Republican margin since, I think, 2004. So winning by 3.1 was impressive, but again, in the right election environment, Clark County may shift back if the economic conditions are not too strong. So I think Nevada is very close. I think it falls under 1 point, but I do think Gavin Newsom does narrowly win it. And Newsom, being from the state of California, could definitely help him in Arizona and Nevada. Nevada and Arizona may even flip as well. I am going to leave Arizona narrowly in the Vance column for now, but it is possible that Newsom may be able to flip Arizona and North Carolina as well. So with that said, based on how things are looking right now, the current prediction for Newsom versus Vance, I would have it looking something like 292 for Gavin Newsom, with the three Rust Belt states flipping to the Democrats, along with Georgia and Nevada. Vance getting 246 and holding the states of Arizona and North Carolina by the skin of his teeth, and narrowing margins in states like Ohio, Iowa, Kansas, Texas, Alaska, and Florida.